They say money can't buy happiness, but in a world overrun by vengeful spirits, it's the only thing that can buy your life. So our protagonist Chen Mu, to escape from his dog-shit life, decided to rob the Nether Bank. However, everything did not go as he planned. After robbing the bank, all the vengeful spirits started chasing him. He ran as fast as he could to escape, sweat dripping down his face as he ran. Just as he was looking away, too scared to look back, a glowing red projection appeared ahead of him, warning him to turn left and not jump out of the window, reminding him to obey the rules. He glared at it with frustration and shouted that he had already robbed a bank. What rules was he supposed to follow now? Behind him, several pursuers burst into the corridor. They shouted for him to stop as they chased him. He glanced back and saw them closing the distance. He gritted his teeth and muttered that they were catching up. The hallway ahead split into empty rooms, but he kept running, telling himself he couldn't worry about anything else anymore. A window flashed into view. Without hesitation, he leapt straight through it. Glass shattered as he dove out of the building, falling toward the ground below. He landed hard but steady. His body trembled from the impact. Then he lifted his head and breathed out in relief, saying that he made it. But just as he felt relieved, a punch smashed into him before he could react. His body twisted from the impact, and he cried out in pain as shards of glass scattered everywhere. Blood sprayed from his mouth as he was thrown backward. He crashed hard onto the ground outside, skidding across the street with a heavy thud. A cold voice echoed from behind him. It said that any human who violated the rules had only one fate: death. Chen Mu clutched his chest, struggling to breathe. His expression tightened as he forced out a frustrated whisper. He remembered that he had struggled through 5 years of the apocalypse since the weird had descended. He had always been cautious, hiding whenever he could, but in the end, even he was driven into a dead corner by the ghosts. Although ghosts were terrifying, they loved money just like humans did, specifically ghost coins. To escape this brutal life, he decided to take a risky gamble. Using an epic tier spatial ring he had obtained earlier, he chose to rob the Nether Bank. While trying to escape, he became cornered. He violated the rules, and in the end, he failed. As darkness surrounded him and he sank deeper, he whispered that he wasn't resigned to this. His body kept falling through the void. He reached out, his eyes wide with refusal, and cried out that he really couldn't accept this. Just then, a bright flash erupted from Chen Mu's spatial ring. Everything around him turned pitch black. The next moment, he opened his eyes and found himself inside a classroom, lying face down on a desk. His eyes suddenly snapped open, and he lifted his head in shock. He slowly rose from his seat, staring at his own hands and the familiar classroom around him, and wondered if he had been reborn. Meanwhile, students whispered nearby. One boy leaned forward and whispered urgently that a weird scenario had already appeared in their city. Another explained that anyone who violated the rules would face severe punishment, maybe losing an arm or a leg if they were lucky, their life if they weren't. Chen Mu froze, his eyes narrowing. A weird scenario appeared. His thoughts trembled. He wondered if he had returned to the exact moment when the weird apocalypse first began. A bead of sweat rolled down his cheek as his expression tightened. He wondered if he had to relive those terrifying days all over again. Just as he was thinking, Chen Mu suddenly jerked his head up and noticed that the spatial ring he had gotten in his previous life had also come back with him. And not just that, all the ghost coins from the Nether Bank he robbed were actually still inside. A slow smile spread across his face. Relief and excitement filled him as he realized that with this much money in this life, he could finally pull off something big. He lowered his gaze, thinking back to his past life. If he remembered correctly, around this exact time, Jiang City's first weird scenario was just about to appear at their school. Just then, a crimson light burst open in the classroom, forming a blood-red frame in the air. Inside it, a pale skull with octopus-like tentacles appeared, dripping dark liquid onto the floor. The floating message announced that the weird mission called Midnight Cafeteria was about to begin. The students froze as the red glow spread across the room. A girl stepped back in terror. Her eyes widened and she screamed, asking what the strange object in front of her was. The same skull emblem hovered near her chest, releasing another glowing red panel filled with distorted text. Another announcement formed above all the students. It stated that the chosen participants were to become waiters for the Midnight Cafeteria. It ordered them to reach the cafeteria before midnight, warning that lateness would not be forgiven. A final message repeated that the mission location must be reached before the clock struck 12. At another desk, a girl in a red dress stared at the red frame near her hands, her face twisted in fear as she shouted that it was a weird mission. Sudden shouting echoed from the hallway. Students rushed through the corridor shouting for help. Several boys ran at full speed, their expressions pale and filled with panic. One student yelled for everyone to run as the red glow continued to thicken around the school. Meanwhile, Chen Mu walked forward. He stopped beside a girl who sat trembling over her desk. Tears streamed down her face as her shoulders shook. She cried out that she didn't want to die yet, and begged to know if she could avoid going. Chen Mu looked down at her calmly. He advised her to follow the rules. He explained that although entering a weird scenario was dangerous, there was still a small chance of survival. He warned her that anyone who arrived late would be erased immediately. The girl stared up at him in silence, frozen and shaking. Chen Mu left the classroom and walked through the hallways as the red light pulsed over the walls. He remembered that this particular midnight cafeteria was considered a blue-chip stock among weird missions, something extremely valuable later on. A faint smile curved across his lips. He stated that conquering the apocalypse would start by buying it. Meanwhile, the message declared that midnight was approaching. Any waiter who was late would be erased. The countdown began, followed by the command to commence erasure. Two students sprinted desperately toward the mission location. Panic filled their faces as one of them screamed in fear. The scene shifted to the front of the cafeteria building, drenched in red light. Black crows circled above as a small group of students gathered at the entrance. They stood silently beneath the ominous glow. One girl let out a shaky breath, saying it was so scary. The others watched the entrance with tense expressions. Suddenly, the red-haired girl reached out toward Chen Mu, as if trying to cling to him. Chen Mu slapped her hand away in an instant, pushing her back. He asked her who she was. His expression stayed firm as he warned her not to try latching onto him. The red-haired girl's face flushed with anger. She clenched her fists, shaking as she tried to respond. Just then, a violent burst of red energy exploded inside the cafeteria entrance. A commanding voice cut through the air, ordering silence. From the glowing vortex, a woman in a black suit and skirt rose into view. She introduced herself as the manager of the midnight cafeteria and announced that there were 3 rules. The first rule: anyone who came to spend inside the cafeteria was a distinguished guest. All staff had to satisfy the guest's demands unconditionally, even her own. The second rule: if any player damaged any cafeteria items, they would be punished. The third rule: leaving the cafeteria during working hours was not allowed. After explaining the rules, the manager took all the players inside the cafeteria. The group of students stood together as the doors closed behind them. The manager stepped forward and spoke politely to the hidden figure at the table, apologizing for the wait and addressing him as a distinguished guest. A harsh voice came from the shadows, asking what they were dawdling for. He shouted for them to hurry up and come over. One of the girls gasped in fear. She trembled as she let out a sharp scream. Her panicked cry echoed again, louder this time. The manager snapped at her, yelling for her to shut up. The girl quickly covered her mouth, shaking as she stepped back. The manager bowed apologetically toward the unseen guest. She said she was sorry and promised to handle the situation immediately. 2 suited staff members moved in from behind and grabbed the frightened girl by the arms. The manager pointed forward and ordered them to take her away. The 2 staff members answered at once, agreeing to the command. The man with spiked hair narrowed his red eyes and gave the next order. He told them to serve the dishes. A moment later, a row of strange steaming dishes was placed on the floor. Chen Mu and the others stood around them as a girl told the distinguished guest to enjoy his meal. The spiked-hair guest leaned forward and bit into a purple, slime-covered creature. Green liquid dripped from his teeth as he chewed loudly. The red-haired girl covered her mouth, disgusted. She asked what he was eating and said it looked disgusting. Tears formed in her eyes as she turned away, trying not to vomit. The guest pointed at her with a wide grin. He ordered her to come over and wipe his mouth clean. The girl froze. She shook her head and whispered that she didn't want to. The red-haired girl grabbed Chen Mu's sleeve in a panic. She pleaded with him, shouting for him to hurry up and help her. Chen Mu glanced sideways at her. He asked why he should go, reminding her that the monster had called her, not him. Frustration twisted across her face. She clenched her teeth and cursed under her breath. A moment later, she forced herself to step toward the guest. Her hands trembled as she held up a cloth. She asked if what she was doing was okay. The spiked-hair guest leaned back with a pleased expression. He handed her a ghostly purple bill and said she had done very well. He told her that the money was her tip. The girl stared at the bill in surprise, lifting it with both hands. A smile slowly formed on her face as she asked if it was really for her. 2 girls stood beside her. One of them leaned forward in surprise and shouted that the bill was actually ghost coins. The girl in the school uniform explained that ghost coins were extremely precious. She said they were valuable enough to make the weird show mercy. The green-haired girl added another story. She said she had heard a tycoon once spent $1 million just to buy 10 ghost coins. She pointed upward with a proud expression. She said she didn't expect this ghostly customer to casually give out 10 ghost coins as a tip. The red-haired girl turned toward Chenmu with a smug smile. She told him it was a good thing she didn't let him take the opportunity. He must be dying of regret now. Across the room, the spiked-hair guest finished eating. He tapped the empty plate and asked them to take it away. The girl quickly stepped forward, smiling as she lifted the plate and told the guest there was no problem at all. As the red-haired girl carried the empty plate away, a foot suddenly hooked around her ankle. Her heel slipped out of balance and she fell to the ground. She hit the floor hard, sliding across the tiles. Shock filled her eyes as she looked back toward the table. The spiked-hair guest leaned forward with a mocking grin. He told her she was clumsy and ordered her to pay up. The girl pushed herself up, furious. She pointed at him and shouted that he had tripped her on purpose. She tried to stand, but a pale hand grabbed her arm and pulled her back. Her eyes widened in fear as she froze. The manager appeared beside her, standing tall in her black suit. She spoke calmly, saying that even if a customer made things difficult, the rules remained the rules. The girl trembled, clutching her arm. She stammered that she would pay. She said she would use the ghost coins to pay for the broken plate. The manager stared down at her, eyes glowing coldly. She asked if the girl was truly sure about making compensation. The girl swallowed hard and nodded. She repeated that she was sure. As she lifted the glowing bill in her hand, Chenmu stepped toward her. He told her she was foolish, saying she had just given up her last chance of survival. According to him, leaving this place alive was now impossible. The girl snapped back at him, saying he was talking nonsense. She argued that she had already paid. The manager raised the bill between her fingers. She explained calmly that the price of a single plate in this cafeteria was 20 ghost coins. The money the girl offered was not enough. Shock spread across the girl's face. She protested loudly, saying the bill in her hand could be exchanged for $1 million outside. How could it not pay for one plate? The manager leaned in with a sharp smile. She told the girl that human money meant nothing here. The ghost cafeteria did not care for the currency used by humans. She leaned forward with a twisted smile and asked how she should punish the red-haired girl. The girl trembled violently, clutching her chest. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes as a single thought shook through her mind. She didn't want to die. Her fear filled the room and the spiky-haired man burst into loud laughter. He held his stomach as he laughed, saying that watching humans show fear was truly interesting. He turned toward the others and wondered aloud who should serve him next. Two girls immediately panicked, stepping back and shouting not to pick them. The spiky-haired man's attention shifted to Chenmu, who stood calmly with his arms folded. With a grin, he asked Chenmu if he wasn't afraid. Chenmu looked back at him without flinching. He asked why he should be afraid. The spiky-haired man slapped a bill onto the plate in front of him and told him to hurry over and take the plate away, promising that the 10 ghost coins would be his. From behind Chenmu, one of the girls stepped forward in fear. She begged him not to go, warning that the man only wanted to harm him. Chenmu glanced back at her calmly. He told her not to worry, saying he had his own ways of dealing with things. He then walked up to the table where the spiky-haired man waited. Chenmu took the banknote and asked if he simply had to carry the plate. Right after he took the money from him, Chenmu picked up the plate and smashed it into the ground. Pieces scattered across the floor. Seeing this, everyone in the room froze. The red-haired woman, the blonde manager, the two frightened girls, and the spiky-haired man all stared in shock. Chenmu looked forward with a calm expression. He told them not to waste time and said they should move on to the next step. The red-haired woman burst into wild laughter. She told him his money wasn't enough to compensate for anything, and she ordered him to prepare to die. The blonde manager stepped forward next. She glared at Chenmu and said he had damaged an item, so he must either pay or die. Chenmu didn't react. Instead, he casually told her not to rush and asked her to serve him a portion of peanuts worth 10 ghost coins, adding that he would eat them right there. The blonde manager froze, confused. She stared at the ghost coin he was holding and asked what he meant. Chenmu then explained the cafeteria rules with a confident smile. He said that as long as someone spent money, they became a customer. He reminded her that cafeteria staff were not allowed to refuse a customer's request. Finally, he pointed at himself and declared that he chose to become a customer, and he refused to make compensation. The blonde manager clasped her hands together with a delighted smile. She praised Chen Mu, calling him a truly clever customer. She stepped closer and asked politely if she could know his name. Chen Mu remained calm. He said she was flattering him and introduced himself as Chen Mu. Before she could continue, the red-haired woman rushed forward angrily. She pointed at Chen Mu and shouted, demanding to know why they weren't killing him too. She argued loudly that he had also smashed a plate. The blonde manager turned toward her with a firm expression. She explained that the woman still didn't understand the situation. She said that Mr. Chen Mu had already used the rules to find the method to clear the stage. The red-haired woman froze, shocked, and shouted in disbelief. She suddenly raised her hand and yelled that she also wanted to spend money. She said she wanted to become a customer too. The blonde manager didn't hesitate. She reminded the woman that she had already confirmed her choice earlier. There was no second chance. The red-haired woman froze, stunned. Her eyes widened as she whispered in disbelief, asking how this could be happening. The blonde manager then turned back to Chen Mu with a respectful tone. She asked if Mr. Chen Mu had any other requests. Chen Mu looked calm. He said he wanted her to call out the boss of the cafeteria for him. A moment later, the scene shifted. Chen Mu pointed ahead confidently and made his bold request clear. He said he wanted to buy the entire cafeteria. Everyone around him, the girls in school uniforms and the two women standing nearby, stared at him in shock. The blonde manager's eyes widened in shock. She asked Chen Mu if he was serious. She explained that although the cafeteria's revenue had recently dropped, buying it would still cost several million ghost coins. Chen Mu answered calmly. He said he wasn't joking, and that as long as she helped him find the boss, everything would proceed. Then he held out a thick stack of bills and said it was her tip. The manager froze, stunned. She gasped when she realized the amount. She shouted that it was 30,000 ghost coins. Her reaction drew the attention of everyone nearby. The red-haired woman and a strange-looking man both yelled in disbelief. The manager trembled as she stared at the money. She said that amount was equal to 2 years of her salary. A grin spread across her face as she held the stack tightly. She whispered that Chen Mu was actually a hidden big shot. The red-haired woman stormed up to Chen Mu in frustration. She shouted at him, asking why he hadn't helped her earlier if he had so much money. Chen Mu looked at her calmly. He told her they weren't related in any way, and there was no reason for him to pay for her mistakes. Before she could argue, the blonde manager stepped forward respectfully. She told Chen Mu to wait a moment, saying she would call the boss right away. Chen Mu nodded with a relaxed smile. He said there was no problem and that he would wait right there. As he smiled, the blonde manager turned toward the red-haired woman. Her expression darkened. She told the woman she had violated the rules and must accept the punishment. The red-haired woman froze, fear rising in her eyes. She reached out desperately toward Chen Mu. Her voice shook as she cried out, saying she had been wrong. Chen Mu stood still, watching her without emotion. She collapsed to the ground, dragging herself forward on her elbows. Tears streamed down her face as she screamed that she didn't want to die. She begged him to save her. The blonde manager grabbed her by the arm. The woman continued screaming for help as she was dragged away across the floor. The manager's red eyes glowed with cold amusement while pulling her toward the back. A moment later, the spiky-haired man stepped up beside Chen Mu. He forced a nervous smile and called Chen Mu Big Brother. He asked him not to take what had happened earlier too seriously, explaining awkwardly that he had simply drunk too much. Chen Mu turned toward him with a sharp expression. Without hesitation, he told him to get lost. The spiky-haired man trembled as he backed away from Chen Mu. He repeated nervously that there was no problem, nodding over and over. In a panic, he turned and ran toward the exit. He shouted that he was leaving right away. A girl near the doorway stepped aside in shock as he sprinted past her. Chen Mu watched him go, then turned to the two girls nearby. He calmly ordered them to sit down. Both girls froze, startled. They quietly took their seats at the table. Confused, they wondered why they were acting so tense when they were supposed to be on an extremely dangerous, weird mission. The two girls exchanged uneasy looks. One of them whispered that the entire atmosphere seemed to change whenever it involved Chen Mu. Just then, the blonde manager looked up and called out to her boss. She introduced Chen Mu. A dark figure with sharp eyes and a twisted smile stepped out from the swirling red mist. He looked directly at Chen Mu and spoke chillingly, asking if he was the one who wanted to buy his midnight cafeteria. Chen Mu faced the boss without hesitation. He confirmed calmly that he was indeed the one who wanted to buy the cafeteria. The boss stepped back with a confident grin, his tone smooth and calculating. He told Chen Mu that he had a sharp eye, saying he should be able to see the cafeteria's value as well. Although the midnight cafeteria's revenue had dropped recently, its scale and location were still unmatched. Chen Mu listened quietly, then nodded. He agreed, saying he was also very optimistic about the cafeteria's future development. At that moment, a thought stirred in Chen Mu's mind. He remembered his past life. Back then, the midnight cafeteria had struggled early on, but later, it suddenly rose to become one of the top hotels in the entire weird world. Chen Mu's expression hardened with determination. He understood the opportunity standing in front of him. This time he planned to seize it early, before anyone else could. The boss smirked to himself, thinking how fortunate he was that someone was finally willing to take over the troublesome cafeteria. He told himself he shouldn't let this opportunity slip away. Facing Chen Mu, the boss raised his voice and pretended to be serious. He said the selling price was quite expensive and wondered if Chen Mu could handle it. Chen Mu didn't hesitate. With a calm smile, he told the boss to name his price. Hearing that, the boss lifted one finger. He announced boldly that for 7 million ghost coins, the entire cafeteria would belong to Chen Mu. The blonde assistant leaned in nervously. She whispered that the boss was being a bit shady and questioned whether their cafeteria was really worth 7 million, telling him to look at Mr. Chen Mu's expression. Seeing Chen Mu's expression, the boss suddenly panicked. Cold sweat formed on his forehead as he wondered if he had asked for too much. Worried, the boss quickly tried to fix the situation. He told Chen Mu that if the price wasn't suitable, they could continue discussing it. Chen Mu opened his eyes and answered calmly. He said there was no need. Then, with a confident smile, he announced that he was offering 8 million and wanted to seal the deal immediately. The boss and the blonde assistant froze in shock. Both of them leaned forward with wide eyes. The boss stared at Chen Mu in disbelief and asked if he was joking. Chen Mu shook his head lightly. He said he was serious and that he had one condition for adding more money. The boss leaned forward eagerly, his eyes shining. He urged Chen Mu to speak, almost begging him to explain the condition. Chen Mu raised his hand and pointed toward the blonde manager. He stated firmly that all the staff members in the cafeteria must remain with him. He said the boss was not allowed to take any of them away. The blonde manager blinked in surprise. She asked if Chen Mu actually wanted to keep them. Before she could say more, the boss cut in with a careless attitude. He admitted openly that after selling the cafeteria, he had planned to run away. He laughed as he said he didn't care about these lonely souls and wandering ghosts, and this way, he wouldn't have to pay the wages he still owed them. Hearing this, the boss quickly changed his expression to a cheerful one. He promised there was no problem and agreed to leave all the employees to Chen Mu. With a greedy smile, he leaned forward again. He asked Chen Mu how long it would take to prepare the payment so they could sign the contract soon. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he waited for Chen Mu's answer. Chen Mu smiled confidently and raised his hand. He said they should complete the deal today because he preferred paying in cash. A moment later, Chen Mu revealed a massive pile of glowing ghost coins. Stacks of money filled the room, sparkling under the lights. The boss fell backward in shock as he stared at the mountain of cash. He looked around in disbelief, stunned that Chen Mu had just taken out 8 million so casually. Money fluttered in the air as the boss's eyes lit up greedily. He muttered to himself, amazed that Chen Mu could produce such a fortune without hesitation. The boss quickly placed a contract and pen on the table. He praised Chen Mu for being so straightforward in business and told him that once he signed, the cafeteria would officially be his. Chen Mu leaned over the document and began signing it. As he wrote his name and finished signing, a sudden purple glow surged from the contract. Energy wrapped around his hands, rising like flames. The boss waved happily, completely unfazed. He told Chen Mu not to worry. He explained that this was the power of the rules, and once the contract was signed, Chen Mu would become the official boss of the cafeteria. He added that no one including himself could forcibly take the cafeteria away after this. Chen Mu looked down at his hand as the light pulsed warmly. A smile formed on his face, and he said he could feel it. In the next moment, Chen Mu's mind connected with something deeper. He realized the cafeteria had formed a bond with him, just like the spatial ring, and from that day onward, the rules of the cafeteria would be set by him. Meanwhile, the former boss watched with a greedy grin. In his thoughts, he rejoiced that 8 million ghost coins had not only allowed him to sell off his failing cafeteria, but also freed him from worrying about the troublesome staff. Chen Mu's eyes shone with confidence. He thought to himself that spending 8 million now would secure a weird scenario worth tens of billions in the future. Chen Mu and the former boss shook hands with bright smiles. Together they declared that they had made a huge profit. Right after shaking hands, the former boss hurried toward the exit with a large sack slung over his shoulder. He waved his hands energetically and said there was no need to escort him out. He wished Chen Mu prosperous business and shouted that he was leaving now. Chen Mu watched him run away and then turned to the blonde manager. He said that now that he was the boss of the cafeteria, he wanted to modify the rules. The blonde manager smiled warmly. She told him there was no problem and that since he was the boss he could change the rules however he liked. Chen Mu looked at the clock on the wall and made a decision. He stated that the weird mission would end at 12:30. The blonde manager nodded with a smile, saying there was no problem. Chen Mu then turned to the two girls who had been trapped in the cafeteria earlier. He told them they could go back safely now. The girls stepped forward with relief. One of them thanked Chen Mu sincerely. She said that if it weren't for him, they definitely wouldn't have been able to leave alive. Chen Mu then looked back at the blonde manager. He instructed her to gather all the staff because he wanted to hold a meeting in 10 minutes. The manager smiled brightly and nodded. 10 minutes later, all the cafeteria staff gathered together, chefs, servers and even a creature in a pink apron, standing in a line as Chen Mu faced them. Chen Mu introduced himself. He told them that their previous boss had sold both the cafeteria and all of them to him. The staff listened quietly as Chen Mu continued speaking. He announced that from that day onward he was the new person in charge. The group lowered their heads with dull expressions. One of them muttered that it didn't matter who the boss was. Another added that they were just beasts of burden anyway. Chen Mu looked at them and spoke firmly. He said he knew their former boss owed them half a year's wages, but he was different. Chen Mu stepped forward and placed his hand over the glowing stack of ghost coins. He announced that he would pay all the back wages and said Manager Lee would hand them out shortly. The bright purple light shimmered across the room, drawing every worker's attention. The staff crowded together, their eyes shining. One of them shouted excitedly that there were so many ghost coins. Another told him to stop yelling, saying he wasn't blind. Someone else whispered that it had to be at least hundreds of thousands. Chen Mu looked at the group and continued. He told them that as long as they kept working for him, he guaranteed their wages would always be paid on time every month. The staff burst into cheers. Some threw their fists into the air. One shouted how great it was. Another said he could finally save money to get a wife. Someone even shouted that Chen Mu was his god. Watching their reactions, Chen Mu smiled quietly. He thought to himself that such a small amount of money had earned him such deep gratitude. In his mind he noted that he should really thank the previous boss for leaving things in this state. Chen Mu waved goodbye to the cafeteria staff as he stepped outside. The workers stood together at the entrance, smiling and calling out, telling him to take care. As he walked away his expression became more serious. He thought about his situation. Even though clearing the midnight cafeteria had given him a boost from the scenario's power, his strength was still only at the ghost soldier tier. If he ran into a higher level weird, he knew he would not be able to escape death. Standing alone under the red-tinted sky, Chen Mu looked around the empty street. He told himself he needed to get some kind of life-saving equipment as soon as possible. Just then, a purple taxi suddenly pulled up beside him. He stared at it in surprise and wondered aloud how there could still be a taxi at such a late hour. The car door clicked as he reached out and pulled it open. Chen Mu leaned inside and spoke to the driver, telling him to go to Wangjiang Community. Chen Mu sat quietly in the back seat of the taxi as the car moved through the night. The interior was silent, but something about the atmosphere felt strange. The taxi suddenly accelerated, the speedometer needle shot upward, and the car rushed forward at an unusually fast pace. Chen Mu looked out the window, watching the scenery blur past. He wondered why the driver was going so fast when there were hardly any cars on the road at this hour. To him the speed felt excessive. As he sat there, he noticed another detail. It was the smell of blood. Chen Mu's expression sharpened. He looked toward the car door and spotted a red shape smeared across the window. It was a bloody handprint. Seeing it confirmed his suspicion that something was definitely wrong with this taxi. A cold thought crossed his mind. He realized he had unknowingly stepped into another mobile weird scenario. This time, it was the Nether Taxi, a mobile weird scenario known for dragging passengers into deadly situations. Inside the taxi, Chen Mu remained calm as he thought about the dangers humans faced in the weird apocalypse. He explained to himself that there were three major threats. First, he recalled the dangerous missions, scenarios like the Midnight Cafeteria, Anyone chosen for those missions had to struggle to survive and complete the task. Next came the second threat: malicious ghosts disguised as regular people. These ghosts acted normal on the surface but secretly lured unsuspecting humans into terrifying scenarios. Then came the third threat, the most dangerous of all. It was the kind where a person didn't even realize they had entered a weird scenario, like someone walking casually down an alley, completely unaware that the air around them was already twisting into something unnatural. By the time someone realized what was happening, it was usually already too late. By then, escape was impossible. Inside the taxi, Chen Mu remained composed. He recalled knowledge from his past life. He knew the rules of the nether taxi. As long as a passenger had enough ghost coins to pay the fare, they could leave safely. If someone had no money, they needed to jump out of the taxi before it began accelerating. But if someone was both careless and broke, and accidentally rode the nether taxi, they would end up becoming food for the ghost. Chen Mu's eyes sharpened. Despite the danger, he understood the benefits. He thought about how the roughest storms bring the best rewards. The nether taxi was incredibly fast and acted as a powerful mode of transportation. While inside it, passengers were also protected from other ghosts. A confident smile formed on Chen Mu's face as he considered the advantages. He looked out the window and thought to himself that he had to find a way to obtain this car. The nether taxi's value was simply too great to ignore. A moment later, the purple taxi sped through the night and arrived at its destination. A sign outside read Wangjian Community Entrance as the car drifted to a stop. Inside, the skeletal driver slowly turned his head, green eyes glowing. He told Chen Mu they had arrived and demanded the fare, 10,000 ghost coins. Chen Mu's eyes widened. He exclaimed that 10,000 was far too expensive. The skull-faced driver leaned closer, his voice turning cold and threatening. He warned that if Chen Mu didn't have money, then he shouldn't blame the driver for becoming nasty. Chen Mu sat calmly in the back seat, a faint smile forming as he studied the skeletal driver. He remarked that a driver who could race down the road at such incredible speed without eyes was truly worthy of being called a veteran. The skull-faced driver didn't appreciate the compliment. A cold light flickered in the hollow sockets as the bony finger pointed forward. The driver snapped angrily, demanding the fare and warning that anyone unable to pay should be prepared for death. Chen Mu didn't flinch. Instead, he lifted a hand with confidence, stopping the ghostly threat in its tracks. A single question escaped his lips. Who had claimed payment was impossible? In the next moment, a heavy bundle of glowing ghost coins slammed down on the seat with a sharp sound. Purple light burst outward from the stack, proving its authenticity. Chen Mu leaned back slightly, challenging the driver with calm certainty. He declared that the money was right there, and the only question remaining was whether the driver dared to accept it. The ghost driver stiffened. Beads of ghostly sweat traced down the cracked skull as disbelief spread across the bony face. The driver was stunned that this young passenger actually possessed 10,000 ghost coins. Finally, the skeletal driver spoke again, repeating the rules that governed the nether taxi. As long as the fare was paid in full, the passenger was guaranteed the right to leave safely. The skeletal driver sat stiffly as Chen Mu's voice continued. Chen Mu pointed out that the driver had deliberately shifted his body to block the taximeter, hiding the real fare. Because of that, the true price couldn't be seen, allowing the driver to quote a sky-high number meant to scare the passenger into panic. Chen Mu leaned back with a calm, confident smile. He explained that the driver had been certain no passenger would carry 10,000 ghost coins. If the passenger failed to pay, the driver could then justify devouring the victim without breaking the scenario's rules. Across the seat, the skeleton's expression turned uneasy. A silent thought echoed within the hollow skull. The apocalypse had only begun a month ago, yet this young human seemed to know every rule of the scenario as if memorized long ago. Chen Mu remarked that the driver truly had a black heart. The cost was obviously 10 ghost coins, yet the driver had tried to demand 10,000. The skeleton clicked his teeth together in annoyance. With a huff, he told the passenger to pay and leave, insisting there was no need for further chatter. Chen Mu held the glowing stack of ghost coins between his fingers, lifting it lightly as purple light shimmered across the taxi interior. He told the skeletal driver not to rush and asked if the ghost coins were tempting, if they were wanted. The skeleton's eyes locked onto the shining bills. A faint tremble ran through the bony jaw as the driver asked whether those coins would actually be given away if desired. Chen Mu responded with a bright, confident smile. He even offered to add another 10,000 on top. The skeleton froze in confusion, unable to understand the intention behind such generosity. Chen Mu leaned forward slightly, still smiling. He explained that the full 20,000 ghost coins would belong to the driver as long as a certain condition was agreed upon. He added that even more coins would arrive every month in the future. The skeletal driver's jaw moved slowly as he stared at the offer. A single question emerged from deep within the hollow skull: what condition? Chen Mu sat comfortably in the back seat, his expression calm and confident. With a light smile he stated his condition. The skeletal driver was to become his exclusive driver, available anytime on call whenever needed. He added that good performance would even earn an extra bonus. The skeleton stared at him in stunned silence. A troubled thought rose inside the ghostly mind. Working non-stop as a taxi driver normally earned only 3,000 a month, yet this young man casually offered 20,000 with a wave of his hand. The difference felt unbelievable. Chen Mu then snapped his fingers. A sharp sound echoed through the taxi, and several glowing stacks of ghost coins materialized, piling up one after another. Purple light filled the space as the money shimmered like treasure. The skeleton's eyes lit up, literally turning into glowing dollar signs. Ghostly excitement spread across the bony face as floating bills drifted through the air. Overwhelmed by the offer, the driver shouted his acceptance on the spot. Chen Mu spoke with a relaxed smile and told the skeletal driver to sign the contract. Starting tomorrow, the ghost would officially become his exclusive driver. In the next moment, the skeleton respectfully presented a phone on top of the signed contract. With great sincerity, he explained that the phone should be kept close. He promised that the moment a call was made, he would appear within 5 minutes without fail. Inside the taxi, the skeleton's thoughts were brimming with determination. Such lavish spending from Chen Mu made the ghost feel that this employer must be treated with the utmost care, and under no circumstances could he be allowed to slip away. Chen Mu reviewed the contract, nodded with satisfaction, and issued one more instruction. He told the driver to return the next morning at 10 o'clock to pick him up at the same location. The skeletal driver straightened his back, glowing with enthusiasm. With a hand pressed over his chest, he assured his new boss that reliability was his strongest trait. His voice rang with confidence and loyalty, eager to prove his worth. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the quiet street, warming the buildings and casting soft shadows under the trees. Inside a small apartment, Chen Mu stepped out with a slice of bread in his mouth, preparing for the day ahead. He reflected on the world's condition. The weird apocalypse had only recently begun, yet strange scenarios were increasing everywhere. Ordinary people feared even approaching those places. Entering them voluntarily was something most wouldn't dare to think about. Chen Mu, however, viewed things differently. He believed this era of chaos presented a rare opportunity, one that could help him reach the pinnacle of life and secure an unshakable position. Still, he understood his own limits. With his current strength, he couldn't challenge scenarios that required overwhelming force. Then an idea struck. A memory surfaced. There was a place nearby, the Mist Museum. The museum owner, Duke William, stood at the Ghost General tier, a level few could match. Beneath him, countless powerful subordinates served at the Ghost Soldier tier. And Duke William possessed his greatest treasure, the Death-Heavy Armor, a Ghost General tier artifact. Rumor stated that anyone who wore that armor became nearly immune to most damage caused by the weird. However, the armor could not be obtained through missions or combat. The only way to gain it was through Duke William's voluntary goodwill. But according to memories from his previous life, Duke William had been struggling financially for a very long time. Though he looked glorious on the outside, he was actually short on money. Realization dawned on Chen Mu, and his expression shifted into excitement. Out of everything in the world, ghost coins were the one thing he had in abundance. Just then, a sharp chime rang out through the apartment as the doorbell lit up repeatedly. Chen Mu walked over and opened the door. Standing outside was a well-dressed skeleton in a tuxedo and red bow tie. Chen Mu expressed mild surprise, noting how punctual the visitor was. The skeleton replied calmly that punctuality was the most basic standard for an exclusive driver. The skeletal driver then lifted a bag and a drink, explaining that Chen Mu likely hadn't eaten breakfast yet, so food had been bought along the way. Chen Mu accepted it with a simple thanks. The driver stepped aside and opened the door of the car, inviting Chen Mu to get in. While holding the door open, the skeleton chuckled, saying that serving well was the best way to ensure a generous bonus. Once inside the car, Chen Mu looked ahead with a thoughtful expression. He turned toward the driver and asked if there was a mall nearby where gifts for the weird could be purchased. The skeletal driver turned slightly and asked if someone of Chen Mu's status was looking for a high-end mall. Chen Mu nodded, confirming that the higher end the place was, the better. The skeleton then shared a suggestion. He explained that there was a notorious mall located in the suburbs, one famous for selling luxury goods. He recommended visiting that place first to check if anything suitable could be found. Hearing that, Chenmu's eyes brightened with interest, and he immediately agreed, instructing the driver to head there. The driver grinned, gripping the steering wheel with confidence. He told Chenmu to sit tight, announcing that they were setting off. A moment later, the purple taxi shot forward like a rocket, leaving streaks of motion behind as it raced down the street at high speed. Chenmu leaned back in his seat with a satisfied smile. He thought to himself that old Wang's attitude was far better than expected. It became clear that money truly made even ghosts work with enthusiasm. The purple taxi sped through the streets, rushing toward the destination. Soon the car rolled into a worn-down district, stopping in front of an eerie aging building. Chenmu looked out the window and asked if this was the place. The skeletal driver confirmed silently as the structure towered above them. A sign identified it as the Depraved Mall, a bleak, abandoned-looking complex with cracked windows and drifting leaves swirling in the air. Stepping out of the car, Chenmu glanced up at the building with determination. He then instructed the skeletal driver to stay with the vehicle and keep watch while he went inside to do his shopping. The skeleton straightened instantly and replied with full loyalty. As Chenmu walked toward the mall entrance, the skeletal driver watched from behind. In the driver's mind, a quiet realization surfaced. Chenmu's instructions showed careful thought. Without the nether taxi, the skeleton was only at the ghost soldier tier, a level too weak to be of real use in dangerous situations. If trouble appeared, the driver would be useless outside the taxi. If he drove the nether taxi into battle to rescue Chenmu, the car would grant an invincibility buff. In that case, no matter how strong the enemy was, they would be unable to harm Chenmu at all. Excitement filled the skeleton's empty eyes. He silently praised Chenmu's strategy as truly brilliant. Inside the mall, Chenmu stepped forward and immediately felt the temperature drop. Despite the heat of summer outside, icy air wrapped around him, frost forming beneath his feet. The sudden chill confirmed that this place was indeed a weird scenario. As he moved deeper into the corridor, the blue light revealed blood smeared across the walls. Bloody handprints covered the surface. Layer upon layer, Chenmu observed the scene calmly. From the number of stains, it was clear this mall had already swallowed many unlucky victims. Chenmu continued deeper into the eerie hallway, his footsteps echoing through the blue light as bloodstains stretched across the floor. His expression hardened, showing caution and focus as he prepared for whatever might appear in this strange mall. Just then, a voice suddenly echoed from the darkness ahead. A woman stepped forward, smiling unnaturally, her mouth stitched at the corners, her eyes glowing with an unsettling blue light. She greeted him politely, welcoming him and asking what he wanted to buy. Chenmu looked at her calmly and asked if this place was truly the Depraved Mall. The woman confirmed it with a grin, her smile widening unnaturally. She stepped closer and warned him not to think about escaping. According to her, anyone who spent money inside the mall would be allowed to leave safely. As she spoke, her long sharp nails reached out and grabbed his shoulder, her expression shifting into a twisted, predatory smile. Chenmu looked at her calmly, a faint smile forming on his face. In a relaxed tone, he pointed out that those seemed to be the mall's rules. The blonde girl, slightly impatient, urged him to hurry up and spend. Chenmu's expression turned serious as he leaned forward. He told her to stop playing tricks, saying that if he wasn't mistaken, even if he didn't buy anything, he could still leave safely. Her expression changed instantly. Shock flashed across her face and a bead of sweat slid down her cheek as she asked how he knew. Chenmu's smile deepened, his eyes steady and confident. He calmly replied that he had seen this kind of situation many times before. Chenmu leaned slightly closer, his eyes calm as he explained that the rules stating one could leave the mall after buying something were actually a misdirection. People who entered the mall for the first time would panic. Wanting to escape as quickly as possible, they would choose a product without thinking too much. However, in the end, those people would violate the rules because they didn't have enough ghost coins to pay. Once that happened, there was only one outcome: they would lose their lives right there. Chenmu then calmly revealed the truth behind the deadlock. He explained that the rules only stated that one could leave after spending, but they never said that leaving without spending was forbidden. With a confident expression, he added that even if he turned around and left right now, there was nothing she could do to stop him. The blonde woman's expression stiffened for a moment, clearly surprised by Chenmu's words. Then, her lips curled into a faint smile as she admitted that he was indeed very smart. She acknowledged that many people had already fallen into the trap of those rules. Her sharp nails slowly released their grip, and her tone turned calm as she told him that since he had already figured out the path to survival, he should leave quickly. She added that she wouldn't stop him. Chen Mu remained standing there unmoved. He spread his hands slightly and asked why he should leave, saying that he had come here to spend. Her expression immediately darkened. With a hint of disbelief and irritation, she stared at him and questioned whether he actually intended to spend. Shenmu smiled lightly and pointed upward, calmly confirming that he wanted to spend. He told her to take him to the highest class counter in the mall. The blonde woman's expression turned sharp as she warned him not to seek his own death. She explained that even the cheapest items in the mall cost more than 10,000 ghost coins, questioning whether he could really afford it. Shen Mu casually brushed off her words, pretending not to hear clearly. Then, without hesitation, he revealed a stack of ghost coins in his hand. The moment she saw the money, her entire demeanor changed instantly. Her eyes lit up with excitement as greed replaced her earlier hostility. She quickly declared that she would take him to the 6th floor, saying that only luxury goods were worthy of someone of his status. Shane Mu remained calm and composed. He handed over a portion of the money, telling her to consider 20,000 as a tip for entertaining him. He added that he was in a hurry and told her to lead the way. Delighted, the woman rushed ahead eagerly, clutching the money, while Chen Mu followed behind with a relaxed and confident expression. The blonde woman held onto Chen Mu's arm and led him forward with a wide smile, politely telling him to follow her. Moments later, the elevator doors opened with a soft sound, and the glowing number showed the 6th floor. She guided Shenmu out as they arrived, her tone cheerful as she explained that this floor contained all the luxury brands in the ghost world, allowing him to choose anything he desired. Shenmu calmly observed his surroundings, his gaze steady as he thought to himself that to move someone like the Duke, one must cater to his tastes. He walked toward a section filled with neatly arranged wine bottles. Standing before the shelves, he noted that aristocratic households usually kept wine cabinets. A quiet realization surfaced in his mind. From his past life memories, he recalled that one of the Duke's wishes had been to collect high-end red wine. Shen Mu stood calmly in front of the counter, his gaze steady as he looked at the woman. The blonde attendant smiled politely and asked what kind of wine he would like to buy. She explained that all the products in the store were custom-made according to the tastes that ghosts preferred the most. However, beneath that pleasant smile, a sinister thought surfaced. She quietly mocked him in her mind, thinking that if he couldn't afford it, he would end up just like the reckless youths before, becoming her next meal. Chen Mu remained unfazed. Without hesitation, he picked up a bottle and calmly gave his order. He asked for 100 bottles of their most expensive red wine, and added that the packaging must be the most luxurious available. The woman's expression didn't change outwardly, but her eyes flickered with cold amusement. In her mind, she sneered at him, thinking that he was an idiot. She believed he was trying to pay with normal currency in a place like this, and decided to watch how long he could keep up the act. The blonde attendant leaned slightly forward with a polite smile and informed Chen Mu that everything was ready. She stated that the total cost came to 23 million. Chen Mu sat calmly, his expression unchanged as he looked at her. The woman's smile turned cold and mocking. She told him that if he didn't have the money to pay, he could simply leave his head behind to offset the debt. Chen Mu remained completely unfazed. With a relaxed tone, he told her there was no need to try to scare him, as he could easily afford such a small amount. At that moment, he casually extended his hand and revealed a massive pile of ghost coins, their glow filling the space. The woman's expression paused for a brief moment before she spoke again, reminding him that the payment required ghost coins, 23 million of them. Chen Mu's lips curved into a faint smile. Holding the stack of ghost coins in his hand, he looked at her calmly and asked what she thought he had been giving her all this time. The blonde woman stared at the pile of ghost coins in her hands, her eyes trembling with disbelief. Her voice shook as she exclaimed that it was impossible. The apocalypse had only descended for a month, yet Chen Mu somehow possessed such an overwhelming amount of ghost coins. She quickly began checking the money again, her movements hurried and nervous, making sure everything was real. Chen Mu sat calmly on the sofa across from her, his expression indifferent. He looked at her and asked if she had confirmed it. The woman swallowed and forced herself to remain composed. With a respectful tone, she told him to wait for a moment, explaining that for such a massive transaction, the manager needed to be present. Chen Mu closed his eyes slightly, clearly impatient, and told her to hurry up, saying he had things to do. Without wasting another second, the woman turned and rushed away. As she pushed open the door, she quickly reported the situation, calling out to the manager that there was a customer downstairs who had just bought 100 bottles of high-end red wine in a single purchase. Inside the office, a red-haired woman wearing glasses sat calmly in her chair. Her sharp eyes glanced forward as she questioned whether the attendant had mistaken another foolish human carrying ordinary currency for an actual customer. The blonde woman quickly stepped forward and respectfully explained that she had already verified it. She said that 20 million ghost coins were sitting downstairs and urged the manager to come and see it for herself. Hearing this, the manager's expression shifted slightly. Curious, she moved toward the door. Peeking from the side, she caught sight of the glowing pile of ghost coins beside Chen Mu. A moment of shock flashed across her face as she realized it was real ghost currency. However, in the very next second, her demeanor completely changed. She adjusted her clothes neatly, her expression turning elegant and composed, a confident smile forming on her lips. Without hesitation, she walked out to meet him. Standing before Chen Mu, she bowed slightly with a polite and respectful attitude. In a calm and refined tone, she apologized for making him wait and asked how she should address him. Chen Mu looked at the manager calmly and introduced himself, saying that his surname was Chen. The manager maintained her polite smile and respectfully addressed him as Mr. Chen. She informed him that he had already spent over 20 million and congratulated him on becoming the depraved mall's very first gold client. As she spoke, she presented a golden card in front of him. Before she could continue, Chen Mu raised his hand slightly and stopped her. In a calm tone, he told her not to be anxious, explaining that he had not finished buying yet. The manager was momentarily stunned. A hint of confusion appeared on her face as she repeated his words in disbelief, wondering if she had heard correctly. Chen Mu simply smiled, his expression relaxed and confident. He confirmed it casually, saying of course. Then, with a faint grin, he added that the 100 bottles of wine were only just the beginning. The manager maintained her polite smile and told Chen Mu that if he had any other needs, she could introduce them to him one by one. Chen Mu waved his hand casually, his expression calm. He told her there was no need for that trouble and instructed her to bring the most expensive jewelry in the shop. Hearing this, the manager froze for a moment. Then, in a sudden exaggerated reaction, her mind spun in shock. She stammered and quickly agreed, addressing him respectfully as Mr. Chen, while inwardly thinking that he was simply inhumanly rich. Moments later, she presented a dazzling crystal necklace. She explained that the necklace was worth 1 million ghost coins and that it was one of the most expensive pieces of jewelry in the entire mall. Chen Mu glanced at it briefly, his expression unchanged. Without hesitation, he calmly told her to wrap it up. The attendant carefully held the box, still slightly stunned as the luxurious item was prepared. Chen Mu looked at the crystal necklace with a faint smile, imagining it in his mind. He thought that such a beautiful crystal necklace would be perfect for the Duchess. Without hesitation, he shifted his gaze to the nearby display and calmly added that he would take those watches as well. The attendant quickly responded with a bright smile, telling him that the total came to 5 million ghost coins. She politely asked him to rest for a moment while they packaged everything for him. Chen Mu sat there calmly, observing his surroundings. In his mind, he noted that the goods here were indeed impressive. He realized that in the future, this place would definitely become a major consumption venue for more and more strange beings. A thought surfaced in his mind. Since the mall had such potential, why not simply buy it outright? With that idea, Chen Mu looked toward the attendant and asked if there was someone in charge. He said he wanted to speak with them. Then, with a calm and steady tone, he instructed her to ask the person in charge how much it would cost to sell the entire mall to him. The manager's eyes widened in shock as she stared at Chen Mu. In disbelief, she exclaimed that she had been treating him as a customer, yet he actually wanted to become her boss by buying the entire mall. Trying to regain her composure, she apologized respectfully and explained that the leader was currently away on a business trip. She admitted that she did not have the authority to make such a decision, but assured him that once the leader returned, she would notify him immediately and asked if that would be acceptable. Chen Mu listened calmly and gave a slight nod. With a relaxed expression, he said that was the only way for now. now. The manager's attitude quickly softened again. With a polite smile, she told him that if he had any needs, she could open a supreme black gold card for him. Chen-mu glanced at her and asked calmly whether that card came with any privileges. The manager smiled gracefully as she explained the privileges of the supreme black gold card. She told Chen-mu that with this card he could modify the mission rules of the depraved mall at will. It was an authority equivalent to that of a scenario boss. She then added that if he wished to stroll through the mall, they would clear the entire venue in advance to ensure he enjoyed the highest level of service and a supreme consumption experience. Chen-mu listened calmly, then casually asked her to open one for him. At the same time, he added another request. He wanted 50 additional shopping cards, each with a limit of 5,000 ghost coins. The manager's smile widened as she quickly agreed. A moment later, she respectfully presented the card with both hands, telling him that this was his supreme black gold card. She added that the 50 shopping cards were a gift for him, a small token of appreciation. Chen-mu took the card, a faint smile appearing on his face. In a calm tone, he simply thanked her. A bright flash of light suddenly burst from Chen-mu's hand as a ring appeared, radiating a soft glow. The manager's eyes widened slightly as she observed it, her thoughts racing. She realized that to possess a spatial ring at such a young age meant that Chen-mu was far from ordinary. His background must be extraordinary. Chen-mu calmly stored everything away, his expression remaining relaxed and composed. After finishing his business, he turned slightly and spoke in a casual tone, saying that they would end things here for today. He added that he still had other matters to handle and that he would be leaving now. The manager immediately straightened her posture and respectfully saw him off. Along with the staff, she bowed slightly and bid him farewell, addressing him as Supreme Black Gold VIP Mr. Chen. They expressed that they looked forward to his next visit. Outside, inside a car, a skeleton driver sat in shock. Its hollow eyes widened as it exclaimed in disbelief about the Supreme Black Gold status. In a stunned tone, it muttered that such a level could only be reached by spending tens of millions of ghost coins. The skeleton driver quickly stepped forward and respectfully opened the car door, addressing Chen-mu as his boss and inviting him inside. After getting into the car, the skeleton glanced at him and asked where they were going next. Chen-mu sat calmly in his seat, his expression relaxed. Without answering immediately, he reached into his pocket and took out a small red box. He casually handed it over, telling the driver not to rush and to hold it first. The skeleton carefully accepted the box, staring at it in confusion as it asked what it was. Chen-mu leaned back slightly, a faint smile appearing on his face. In a calm tone, he told the driver that it was a gift and asked him to open it and see if he liked it. The skeleton froze for a moment, clearly surprised, as shock and excitement began to rise within it. The skeleton carefully opened the red box, and the moment the lid lifted, a radiant glow burst out. Its hollow eyes widened as shock filled its expression. A stunned voice escaped from it, overwhelmed by what it saw. Inside the box lay a luxurious watch, shining brilliantly under the light. The skeleton trembled slightly as it stared at the item. In disbelief, it muttered that it was a zombie Constantin watch. Its hands shook as it held the box, clearly overwhelmed by the value of the gift. Tears began to gather in its empty eye sockets as emotion surged within it. In a trembling voice, it told Chen-mu that the gift was too valuable and that it could not accept it. Chen-mu simply smiled, his expression relaxed and gentle. He told the skeleton to keep it, saying that as long as it followed him and worked hard, there would be plenty of benefits in the future. The skeleton was stunned, deeply moved by his words. In its mind, memories surfaced of its previous employers, people who had only exploited its labor and treated it like nothing more than a beast of burden. Compared to that past, the kindness Chen-mu showed now felt completely different. The skeleton stared at the glowing watch, its empty gaze filled with emotion as it reflected on everything. In its mind, a firm thought formed. It realized that Chen-mu was completely different from anyone it had served before. Not only was he kind-hearted, but he was also incredibly generous. Overwhelmed with gratitude, tears streamed down its hollow eye sockets. In a trembling yet determined voice, it declared that from now on, it would follow Chen-mu's lead in everything. Chen-mu smiled calmly, his expression relaxed. He told the skeleton not to get too excited and instructed it to take him to the Mist Museum. The skeleton immediately straightened up, its tone filled with energy as it responded that they would set off right away. Without wasting another second, the car roared to life. Tires screeched against the ground as it sped through the city streets, leaving dust swirling behind. The surroundings quickly blurred as the vehicle rushed forward, heading toward its destination. Inside the car, Chenmu's eyes narrowed slightly as a serious thought crossed his mind. Having already made so many preparations in advance, he knew that this time he had to secure the death-heavy armor no matter what. Moments later, the vehicle slowed to a stop. The skeleton driver turned slightly and respectfully informed Chenmu that they had arrived. Without hesitation, Chenmu stepped out of the car, his movements calm and composed. He then turned back slightly and told the skeleton to find a place nearby to rest. He added that he would call once he was done. The skeleton immediately agreed without any hesitation, responding with confidence that it would do as instructed. Chenmu stepped forward, his shoes tapping lightly against the ground as he moved ahead without hesitation. Not far from the entrance, a small group of people was gathered in front of a large, imposing gate. They stood close together, clearly discussing something among themselves. As Chenmu approached, one of them noticed his presence. The man turned his head slightly, his eyes narrowing as he spoke, wondering if another one had come. The group's attention quickly shifted toward Chenmu, their gazes filled with curiosity and caution. One of them stepped forward and addressed him, asking if he had also received the mission notification. Another man beside him smiled faintly and suggested cooperation. He explained that working together would increase their chances of winning. However, Chenmu showed no interest and refused without hesitation. In his mind, betrayal and treachery were common in the apocalypse. He believed that teaming up with random people would only lead to an unknown death. Seeing his response, one of the others grew irritated and called him arrogant. He mocked Chenmu, saying that acting cool in such a situation was foolish, and that without allies to help, the only outcome would be a dead end. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a frightened woman clung to a man, expressing her fear about the strange and dangerous mission. The man tried to reassure her, confidently saying that he had managed to obtain extremely rare ghost coins this time, and that they would definitely be able to clear the mission. With a smug expression, he revealed that just to acquire 10 ghost coins, he had spent nearly 8 million, and he was counting on them to succeed this time. The woman looked at the man with teary eyes and clung to him, saying she had always known he was the best. She confessed that she liked him very much and begged him not to abandon her. The man smiled confidently and reassured her that as long as she listened to him, everything would be fine. He even promised that once the strange mission was over, he would get a divorce and marry her. Not far away, Chenmu watched the scene calmly. He thought to himself that he hadn't expected someone like that man to actually obtain ghost coins. Meanwhile, the couple leaned closer to each other, completely absorbed in their own world. Noticing the gaze, the man suddenly turned and snapped, asking what he was looking at. With an arrogant tone, he mocked him, asking if he had never seen a rich person before. But suddenly, a force surged forward, and the surroundings distorted as if space itself had shifted. In the next moment, a voice echoed in the air, welcoming them to the Mist Museum, explaining that they would act as guests and visit the family of Ghost General Duke William, who lived there in seclusion. The group was then guided forward, walking together toward a massive ancient structure. The atmosphere grew heavier with each step as they approached the towering doors. The voice spoke once more, politely inviting them to enjoy the banquet prepared by the Duke to their heart's content. Standing before the large gates, one of the young men reached out and knocked. The sound echoed sharply in the silent surroundings as they waited for what would come next. The massive doors slowly creaked open, revealing a dim and eerie interior. A figure stood inside, dressed neatly like a servant, but his glowing eyes gave away his unnatural presence. In a calm voice, he welcomed them, saying that new guests had arrived again and invited them to come in. He introduced himself as Roni, the Duke's butler. As he stepped forward from the shadows, an unsettling aura spread through the hall, making the atmosphere even heavier. Seeing him, two of the young men trembled in fear. One of them stuttered, asking if that was really a ghost, while the other admitted it was his first time seeing one. Behind them, the wealthy man grew nervous as well. Beside him, the red-dressed woman asked him anxiously if the creature would attack them from behind while they were entering. Trying to stay composed, he reassured the woman beside him, saying there was nothing to fear. He claimed it was just a minion and that it would not dare to do anything to them. So, one by one, everyone entered the Mist Museum. Seeing them, the butler clicked his tongue in annoyance and remarked that they were just like the previous group, rude and stingy. He criticized them for visiting Duke William without even bringing a gift. Just then, he paused and noticed something unusual. His gaze shifted as he realized there was one more person present. Shenmue stood calmly, a faint smile on his face as he stepped forward. The butler looked at him coldly and questioned why he had not come inside yet, stating that he had no interest in wasting time on someone who was as good as dead. Unbothered, Shenmue calmly spoke, identifying the figure in front of him as Duke William's butler. The butler confirmed it, and, with a displeased expression, ordered him to hurry up and go wait in the hall instead of standing there like a statue. Shenmue calmly raised his hand and said that he had a gift he wanted to present. As he revealed it, a dazzling glow spread outward. Seeing it, the butler was instantly shocked. He recognized it at once. It was a spatial ring. With a polite smile, the young man explained that it was his first time visiting and apologized for the intrusion. He asked the butler to accept the small token as a gesture of respect. The butler's attitude immediately changed. He nodded with satisfaction and admitted that it was not bad, finally acknowledging that someone among them had proper manners. Shenmue smiled and added that he hoped the butler would like it, mentioning that he had been worried he might have chosen the wrong gift and caused offense. As the butler leaned closer and opened the box, his glowing eyes widened in shock as he stared at the item inside. He could hardly believe what he was seeing and wondered if it was a roll ghost watch worth 300,000. Still stunned, he looked at Shenmue and cautiously asked if he had taken out the wrong gift, saying that such an item should be meant for the Duke, not for someone like him, as he was merely a butler. Shenmue smiled warmly and shook his head. He explained that the gift was specifically for him. He praised the butler's loyalty, saying that he had spent half his life worrying and working for the Duke, and that such dedication earned his admiration. Hearing this, the butler's expression softened. He smiled with satisfaction and declared that he would accept the gift out of respect. With a confident tone, he added that although he was only a butler, he still held some authority. He assured Shenmue that he was welcome as their guest, and promised that with him around, he would make sure he could leave the Mist Museum completely unharmed. Shenmue smiled lightly and told the butler that he was too kind. In his mind, he felt satisfied, thinking that spending a mere 100,000 in exchange for a life-saving charm was completely worth it. As they walked together, the butler suddenly asked if the people who had just entered earlier were his friends and whether they required any special care. However, Shenmue told the butler that he did not know them. Hearing this, the butler nodded in understanding. He explained that there was still some time before the Duke's banquet. Before that, there would be a small game, and he politely asked Shenmue to move to the hall and rest for a while. Meanwhile, the others also gathered. Inside the grand hall, the red-dressed woman clung tightly to the rich man, trembling as she called out to Brother Hai, begging him not to let her out of his sight. Not far away, two young men stood watching, their expressions tense and uneasy. As they saw Shenmue in the distance, they were unable to believe what they were seeing, wondering how that kid had managed to become so friendly with the butler. Meanwhile, the butler politely served tea to Shenmue, offering it with respect. Shenmue accepted it calmly and thanked him. Watching from afar, the others grew even more frustrated. One of them clenched his teeth and muttered that it was no wonder the young man had acted so aloof earlier. He had already found a way in. He then whispered to his companion that they needed to rope him in somehow. Even if the young man had no real skills, he could still be useful, at the very least acting as a shield for them in danger. At that moment, the butler addressed the guests, informing them that the banquet was still being prepared. To help pass the time, he announced that Lord Duke had specially arranged a small game of hide-and-seek. Holding the glass in his hand, Shenmue's lips curled into a faint smile as he quietly remarked that it was finally coming. Soon after, the rules of the game were announced. The first rule declared that the game would last for 2 hours. During this time, no one was allowed to leave the first floor area, and anyone who violated this rule would be immediately obliterated. The second rule followed closely. Once the game began, the security guards would act as hunters, patrolling the exhibition hall. Anyone discovered by them would be executed without hesitation. Then came the third rule. Except for the walls and the floor, all stationary objects within the hall were considered part of the Duke's exhibits. Anyone who dared to move or touch them would face the Duke's punishment. After laying out all the rules, the butler calmly announced that the game was about to begin and wished everyone good luck. As the game began, the timer immediately started counting down from 2 hours. At that moment, the atmosphere suddenly turned freezing cold. A chill spread through the hall, and frost-like particles drifted in the air. The red-dressed woman looked around in fear, wondering why it had suddenly become so cold and whether a ghost was about to appear. Panicking, Brother Hai urged the woman beside him not to be afraid and suggested that they find a place to hide first. Nearby, another participant quickly realized a limitation within the rules. He noted that since they were not allowed to touch the exhibits, it meant they could not hide inside any furniture either. The realization made his expression turn grim. As fear spread, someone shouted in frustration, cursing that the situation was clearly designed to kill them. Panic began to take hold of the crowd. Amid the chaos, however, Chen Mu remained calm. He quietly analyzed the situation, concluding that the path to survival must be hidden within the rules themselves. With a death exemption medallion in his possession, he decided to use this opportunity to sharpen his ability to find a way to survive. Just then, a thick, eerie purple mist began to spread throughout the exhibition hall, slowly swallowing the surroundings in a cold, suffocating haze. The atmosphere grew heavier with each passing second. Soon, hunters started to emerge from within the fog. The red-dressed woman spotted them first and immediately panicked, shouting in fear that there was a ghost. Her voice echoed loudly through the hall. Before she could continue, Brother Hai slapped her on the cheek. Her head snapped to the side, silencing her. He angrily told her to shut up, warning that yelling like that would only get them discovered. Meanwhile, the hunters moved slowly through the purple haze, searching the area to find the players. Suddenly, one of them noticed movement nearby. Not far away, the red-dressed woman and her lover were hiding behind a display, trembling as tears filled her eyes. She begged desperately not to be found, but then one of the hunters slowly approached and appeared behind them. In a chilling voice, it declared that it had found an outsider. Hearing those words, Brother Hai and the red-dressed woman froze. Panic instantly took over. Brother Hai's face turned pale as he let out a terrified scream, his body shaking uncontrollably as the danger closed in. As the ghost closed in, the man shouted for help. Without hesitation, he pushed the woman away and turned to flee on his own. The red-dressed woman stumbled forward, reaching out toward him as tears streamed down her face. She begged him not to leave her behind, her voice filled with desperation as he ran farther away without looking back. Left alone, she trembled in fear, unable to understand why the ghost had not attacked her yet. Her heart pounded as confusion mixed with terror. Not far away, two survivors faced another ghost directly. One of them realized the situation instantly and declared that it was over. They had already been spotted. Thinking quickly, one of them came up with a plan. He told his partner to stall the ghost while he circled around to launch a sneak attack from behind. The other nodded, eyes wide, and said he understood, preparing himself for the desperate move. One of the boys stepped forward, shouting at the ghost to come at him if it had the courage. He rushed in and grabbed the ghost, yelling for his big brother to strike quickly, and hit it from behind with a stick. He struggled to hold it in place, desperate to make the plan work. But the ghost only mocked him, coldly telling him that the man he was trying to help had already run away long ago. Hearing that, the boy's face twisted in shock and anger. He shouted in disbelief, accusing Zhao Sang of betrayal, reminding him that he had once saved his life, yet was now abandoned without hesitation. Before he could react further, the ghost killed him. At that moment, Zhao Sang ran as fast as he could to save his life. With a cold and ruthless tone, he admitted that he had survived this long by being ungrateful and selling out his own brothers. Chen Mu stood calmly in the eerie hall, observing the surroundings as he spoke thoughtfully about the exhibits, objects that no one could touch and things that could not move. As he examined the situation further, a realization struck him. He understood that the path to survival was hidden within these strange rules. With a faint smile, he decided to test his theory. Glancing toward the nearby ghost, he thought to test it on him. Moments later, the ghost approached him and declared that it had found him, ordering him to stop struggling and die quietly. Unfazed, Chen Mu simply looked at it and responded calmly, inviting the ghost to come closer if it wanted to act. The ghost glared at him with glowing eyes and threatened that if he did not run, it would kill him. However, Chen Mu remained completely calm. With a faint smile, he warned that if the ghost dared to touch him, it would be the one to die instead. Hearing this, the ghost was taken aback and questioned how such a thing could even be possible. Chen Mu then explained the rule clearly. According to the rules, anyone who touched an exhibit would be executed. Since all unmoving objects were considered exhibits, as long as he remained still, he himself would count as one. Standing there confidently without moving, he looked straight at the ghost and challenged it, asking if it still dared to touch him. The ghost was stunned, its expression twisting in disbelief as it realized that the young man had already figured out the rules in such a short time. Understanding that it could no longer use him to increase its performance quota, the ghost decided not to waste any more time. It turned away, thinking it was better to hurry and find other targets. As the ghost walked off, Chen-mu quietly watched from behind. Once it was gone, he let out a small breath of relief and admitted to himself that his guess had been correct. But just as he relaxed, a sudden touch landed on his shoulder. Startled, he froze for a moment before reacting in shock, wondering who it was. Behind him stood a calm attendant, holding a tray with a glass of tea. The man politely informed him that his tea was ready. Hearing this, Chen-mu let out a breath and covered his face, admitting that he had been startled. For a moment, he had even thought that his judgment about the path to survival had been wrong. The attendant then explained that the place was cold and damp. The Lord Butler had been worried that he might feel cold, so he had specifically sent a cup of hot tea to warm him up. Chen-mu accepted the glass with a faint smile and calmly replied that he understood, asking the attendant to thank the butler on his behalf. The attendant raised a hand and calmly conveyed another message, stating that the Lord Butler had also instructed that if he ever felt bored, he could quit the game at any time. Chen-mu remained relaxed, hands in his pockets, completely unfazed by the disturbance. With a calm expression, he replied that there was no need, as he had already found the path to survival. Meanwhile, the red-dressed woman, watching from the shadows, observed the scene with a serious expression. She admitted to herself that she had not expected the young man to be so formidable. A thought quickly formed in her mind. If she could latch onto him, she was certain she would be able to get out of this place alive. Without hesitation, she rushed toward him, her movements swift and deliberate. As she approached, her demeanor suddenly changed. With a trembling voice and teary eyes, she called out to him, saying he looked handsome and that she was afraid. Reaching him, she looked up pitifully and pleaded, asking if he could protect her.